So the Bengals' first-round draft pick abruptly left mandatory minicamp this morning with his contract still not signed. Since he is clearly not happy about this, and there's a few different ways things can go from here, including a couple pretty crazy scenarios that I'll dive into during today's video. So I've got to talk about that, Texan safety Jimmie Ward getting arrested on alleged assault charges, one wideout needing an MRI after getting carted off at practice this week, and more right after. Alright, first up, the situation between the Cincinnati Bengals and rookie first-round pick defensive end Shemar Stewart does not appear to be getting any better. In fact, it might actually be just a little bit worse. Today was the final day of their mandatory minicamp, and while he hasn't been participating in practices, he still has been around, showing up, watching practices, and also participating in team meetings, studying the playbook, all that stuff. Well, early this morning, he actually left altogether before practice even started. I would assume it's because a deal wasn't in place still, so he's like, why am I going to be here? There's no need to be here. I'm out of here. I mean, he doesn't technically have to be there anyway, and he can't get fined by the team because he hasn't even signed a contract yet, since he implemented a new clause into their contracts that states a default by Stewart would void all of his future guarantees instead of just the year the default occurred in. The problem is none of their previous contracts have included this language in them, and so that's why Shemar and his representation are standing pat, and the situation has gotten a bit ugly because neither side is budging at this point in time, so basically it's a bit of a stalemate right now. Zac Taylor spoke with the media today and was asked about Shemar holding out, the comments Shemar made about the team on Tuesday, as well as whether or not he thinks a contract will get done before training camp. Zac shared that he and Shemar have had good communication, and while he wishes he was out there on the field, he's been a good learner in the meetings, okay, for what that is worth. Taylor was kind of playing coy with the media like the trained professional he is, but he did seem a little annoyed with Shemar's comments to the media the other day. I don't really blame him because Shemar was pretty unfiltered in his comments, saying the Bengals just want to win an argument rather than winning more games. At least that's how it comes off to him. Shemar also believes he's 100% in the right with this contract situation, and it should be a no-brainer to fix the language in the contract and get it done, saying it's a simple fix. And while Stewart isn't necessarily wrong here, it was still surprising to hear how bold he was with the media. In the end, the Bengals are in control of their contract language and don't have to change what's in it. But what happens if the holdout continues? I'll get to that in a moment, but when Zac Taylor was asked about Shemar's recent comments, he said there's education that needs to be done with all rookies in regards to protecting the team and the locker room. But ultimately, that's the way Shemar chose to go about it, so it is what it is. And at this point, he's just looking forward to getting him out there on the field. Taylor was then asked if he expects a deal to get done before training camp, and he wouldn't make a prediction on that one way or another. Well, missing rookie minicamp, at least not participating in the practices, as well as OTAs, and mandatory minicamp is certainly not ideal for a rookie, especially one that many analysts say really could use the reps. But there's still about a month and a half until training camp to get this resolved, so he could very well be there for that, which would be very ideal. Heck, even if it's not done by then, it doesn't mean it's all over. Back in 2016, Joey Bosa was taken 3rd overall by the Chargers and missed 31 days of training camp over a contract dispute. He ended up becoming a franchise great, as we all know, and has the 2nd most sacks in team history. Obviously, we have no idea what the future of Shemar will look like, but all that to say, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. What happens, though, if an agreement is not reached before training camp? What then? Well, one of a few things could take place. He could obviously just sign later into training camp like Bosa did, which is probably the most likely scenario here, but it's worth mentioning that the team could actually trade him even though he isn't under contract. The window for trading an unsigned draft pick expires 30 days before the first game of the regular season, which this year is September 4th between the Eagles and Cowboys. So that means the window for trading Stewart closes on August 5th. That is an option if this thing continues to get uglier and uglier, though it doesn't seem likely, and I really think the Bengals need the help on defense. That's probably only in case of emergency. An even crazier outcome here is that he opts to not sign the contract at all and then sits out the entire 2025 season. At that point, he could then re-enter the draft in 2026 and be an eligible selection for any team other than the Bengals. If he wants to avoid the draft entirely and sign somewhere as a free agent, he would have to sit out 2 seasons and then he could do that. This is not happening, but there are some pretty crazy scenarios that could play out here. So basically, he can sign the contract, demand a trade, or sit out the entire year. I do think he ends up signing, but at the end of the day, you can never be too sure because after all, this is the Cincinnati Bengals, and their front office is known to be quite stubborn. It's just a bummer for the team and his teammates, especially when Trey Hendrickson is also in the midst of a contract dispute and is holding out entirely. That's what makes some of these other quotes by Zach Taylor today pretty laughable. The Bengals have started 0-2 each of the last 3 seasons, so in an effort to start fast this year, they plan on not doing any joint practices and instead playing starters more in preseason games on top of having more morning practices during training camp. Well, that's great and all, but how about paying your best defensive player so he stops his holdout and signing your first-round draft pick that is also on the D-line and needs all the reps he can get? That would probably be helpful. I know some of that is way above Taylor's pay grade, so I'm not roasting him for what he said to the media. It's more of a front office thing for sure, but this whole thing makes the entire organization look bad, especially when it happens year after year. They're known for kind of being cheap, and the Bengals are once again in a dispute with key players. What else is new? Now, on top of Shemar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson, another edge rusher in the AFC North that's in the midst of a contract dispute is TJ Watt. He hasn't been in attendance for either OTAs or minicamp as he's been seeking a new deal. Last week, it was reported that the Steelers do in fact have a contract offer out to Watt, and while we never got the full details of what it was, it, quote, probably was not what Watt was looking for in his next deal. However, Adam Schefter reported on the Pat McAfee show today that the Steelers feel comfortable that they'll be able to work something out with him. So it at least sounds like there's communication on both sides and things are heading in the right direction there, very much unlike Shemar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson. The edge rusher market has exploded this offseason with Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, and Danielle Hunter all signing extensions that make them the 3 highest paid in the NFL. Watt is currently the 7th highest paid edge rusher, which makes him clearly underpaid compared to his production. He has the most sacks and forced fumbles since coming into the league in 2017, for example. He's also tied for the most sacks in a single season in NFL history, and even in what was considered a quote-unquote down year last season, he finished with 11.5 sacks and led the league with 6 forced fumbles. So even though he just turned 30, I think he's far from washed and clearly deserves to be one of the highest paid at his position. Someone else that Shefty thinks will get a deal soon is Commanders wideout Tet McMillan, Scary Terry himself, who's in the middle of a holdout. He's seeking a new deal as he's heading into the final year of his current one. He hasn't been present for OTAs and minicamp. This is normal for people who want a new contract and they're on the last year of their deal, so no real surprise, but he has reportedly been frustrated with the team over the entire ordeal. Despite that, though, Schefter said the Commanders believe they'll get something done with him here eventually. Similar to the edge rusher market, the receiver market has gone pretty bananas in the last couple of years with a ton of different guys getting extensions. Terry is coming off a career season and has been a consistent pro even during some dark days for that franchise. Spotrac, for what this is worth, has his contract projected at 3 years, $93 million. That would be a little over $31 million per year and would make him the 6th highest paid receiver in the league. That might sound like a bit of an overpay, but with Jaden Daniels on a rookie deal, you have the luxury of overpaying a few key players, so do it. Do it. That's not a Jedi mind trick, I just think they should. Their GM has been on record saying they want to get something done before the season, but we'll see how that plays out in the coming weeks and months. Next up, in a bit of heavier news, Texan safety Jimmie Ward was arrested this morning and charged with felony assault and family violence after an alleged altercation took place at his home in Magnolia, Texas. The arrest occurred at 5:38 this morning as Ward allegedly assaulted, strangled, and threatened the female complainant, who is believed to be his fiancé. An emergency protective order was filed at her request, and Ward was being held in Montgomery County Jail, but was later released this afternoon on $30,000 bail. Obviously, it's innocent until proven guilty. We need to let the legal process play out before rendering strict, harsh judgment, but stuff like this never initially looks great at all. The Texans released a statement earlier today just saying they're aware of the situation and are gathering more information. I mean, that's what every team says and does, so no real surprises there. Ward signed with the Texans in 2023 after spending his first 9 seasons with the 49ers, and he's been a team captain both years. He signed a 1-year extension last offseason and is set to become a free agent after this year. He's also coming off of foot surgery to address an injury he suffered late last year and hasn't been practicing yet in OTAs or minicamp, but the 33-year-old vet was expected to be back by training camp. But now, who really knows? I imagine his status with the team is up in the air until the full details of his arrest are released and the investigation concludes. But if they need to, Houston themselves can release him, move on from him, though they would have to eat around $4.6 million to do so. And then we've got some injury updates to get to. The first is Tet McMillan, who the Panthers drafted 8th overall and are expecting big things from. He was accidentally kicked in the leg while going for a pass in Tuesday's practice, and while he ended up sitting out yesterday, Dave Canales said that they hope to have him back out there today. Well, he was not out there today, okay? Though it sounds more precautionary than anything else, and they expect to have him back by the start of training camp. The same goes for fellow rookie wide receiver Luther Burden III. He suffered a soft tissue injury during rookie minicamp, and he actually missed all of OTAs and minicamp because of it. Bears coach Ben Johnson said that while it's never good for any young player to miss so much valuable time in the offseason, he does expect him to be good to go come training camp. This actually happened with Chiefs wide receiver Xavier Worthy last year, a hamstring issue that kept him out of most of OTAs altogether, and while he had a slow start to the 2024 season, he had a very productive second half. Then Bills rookie cornerback Maxwell Hairston limped off the field yesterday and was seen talking with athletic trainers. It appeared like he was grabbing at his knee, but today Bills GM Brandon Beane revealed that he actually tweaked his hamstring a little bit. He wasn't out there at practice today, but just like Tet McMillan and Luther Burden III, he should be ready to get back out there once training camp begins. Now, this next player's injury, on the surface anyway, appears to be more serious than the other guys I just talked about, and that is Commanders wide receiver Noah Brown. He went down during 7-on-7s yesterday, and after being down on the ground for a bit, he was able to walk over to the cart where he was then carted off back to the facility. Well, he wasn't out there today at practice, and while Dan Quinn declined to specify exactly what type of injury Brown went down with, he said that he got an MRI this afternoon, and at this point, that's all we know. You never really love to hear that a player had to get an MRI. An MRI could reveal something major, obviously, or rule out something major. So I'm not going to jump to conclusions. It's just not ideal, as Brown was looking to have another impactful year with the Commanders, who just made the NFC Championship. So definitely hoping for the best with him. And be sure of this, I'll keep you guys updated every step of the way. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.